Now I want to talk about Kendrick getting called out in relation to his influence, or what some people are saying, lack of influence on the rap game. Some of y'all might have heard all about it, while others haven't. But Kendrick Lamar was trending the other day as a result of an audio call that leaked of Young Thug criticizing Kendrick for not putting other people on. Now I'm not going to play the audio in this video, but let's break down what Thug actually said and talk about why it made so many waves. The audio call was from 2023 during Young Thug's incarceration for the RICO case, and it started a ripple effect of conversations about this particular topic. This isn't the first time Kendrick has faced this type of criticism either. Over the years, people have drawn comparisons between him and Drake. Drake is known for constantly collaborating, bringing new artists onto the spotlight, and keeping his sound tied to the wave of the moment. Kendrick, on the other hand, has built his legacy in a very different way. I'd say that Kendrick is more self-contained, really focused on his own craft and own circle instead of constantly trying to pull in new artists. So let's get into some of the things Young Thug actually said on that call. First of all, Young Thug claimed he reached out to Kendrick for a verse on his album back in 2023, when he was locked up. According to him, Kendrick declined, and Thug wasn't happy about that at all. Young Thug then compared Kendrick directly to Drake and said Drake puts people on, collaborates left and right, and changes people's lives with features, which isn't a lie. Meanwhile, Kendrick keeps his circle small. That's why, in Thug's words, Kendrick will never be bigger than Drake ever in life. Thug also name-dropped Lil Baby, Lil Durk, and himself as real superstars, and in his mind, Kendrick should have jumped on a song with him. Young Thug also brought up Baby Keem, who's currently on a hiatus. Baby Keem is Kendrick's cousin, for anyone who doesn't know, and he said Kendrick mainly works with him and continued by calling Baby Keem a bullshit-ass Keem. He also stated that Kendrick never actually put Keem on, which that in itself is a bullshit statement. Now that wasn't the only thing Young Thug said. In the leaked calls, Young Thug said if Kendrick collaborated with him or artists in his lane, it would help Kendrick's credibility and make him more liked outside of just the core hip-hop fanbase. And even said the East Coast doesn't really mess with Kendrick like that. On top of that, Thug mocked Kendrick's lack of use of social media. We all know that Kendrick doesn't use social media that much, but the Thug basically said that if that's the case, he should just delete his page altogether instead of trying to prove he's offline, which that's a bullshit statement right there. Something else that's relevant outside of what Thug said, people have been bringing up Kendrick's Euphoria Drake diss record, where he has a line where he says, "I know some shit about niggas that make Gunna Wanna look like a saint." People have been speculating if this could possibly be about Young Thug, who we all know got exposed for talking to the police and essentially snitching, which has completely ruined his street credibility. I don't know for sure, but there's a chance that line could have definitely been aimed at Thug, considering how specific it was, especially when it relates to Gunna. So all in all, Thug wasn't holding back. He criticized Kendrick for refusing a feature, compared him to Drake, took shots at Baby Keem, who hasn't bothered anyone, but anyway, just leave Baby Keem out of this, okay? He also said the East Coast doesn't rock with Kendrick and even mocked his social media approach. Now this video is going to be less about Mr. Chatty Patty Young Thug, but more about Kendrick, so let's have a conversation, right? Now, although Kendrick is one of the most accomplished rappers in the rap game, along with some other names, of course, one of the biggest criticism outside of his rapping abilities he's received is that Kendrick has never put anybody on. People have been saying this for a long time, but especially over the last 2 years, the criticism has gotten louder. People have been saying that Kendrick is selfish, that he doesn't really give back to the game, that his influence on rap isn't as strong as people make it out to be. And a lot of it has to do with his lack of collaborations, and the fact that he hasn't influenced a lot of people in the same way, let's say, a Lil Wayne has, where there's many versions of him in the rap game. Now, Drake has always been the foundational comparison when it comes to this conversation. He's the #1 person Kendrick gets put up against, because a big aspect of Drake's brand is because he's built it upon collaborations, cosigns, and staying tapped into whatever wave is coming next. Thug just echoed a few of the same points people have been making for years, and honestly, it's a very popular take on Kendrick, that he's not interested in helping other artists shine. But let's not act like Kendrick hasn't put people in positions to win before. We've got J-Rock, we've got Schoolboy Q, and of course SZA, who's one of the biggest mainstream singers today. All these artists came up under Top Dog Entertainment, Kendrick's former label, and they've all credited him for helping their careers. Schoolboy Q in particular said that Kendrick literally saved his life. He put him in a position to meet Dr. Dre, which ended up being the reason why he even got a record deal in the first place. SZA has said similar things as well. She mentioned how Kendrick was the one who put her on All the Stars, and that wasn't just a big moment for her career. It turned into one of the biggest soundtrack songs of all time. And let's not forget when he put Kodak Black on his album to narrate Mr. Morale. At the time, Kodak had just come up off of that case, and Kendrick got a lot of criticism for even giving him that type of spotlight. But that alone showed he's willing to go against the grain, take risks, and put someone in a position even if the culture doesn't approve of it. And then we've got Baby Keem. Years before people even knew his name, he was producing on the Black Panther soundtrack. That opportunity came through Kendrick. Keem had been perfecting his craft and grinding for years, but when that door opened, he ran with it and built himself into one of the most respected young rappers of this new generation. Now these are all people from Kendrick's circle, not literally family except for Baby Keem, but artists who came up around him through TDE. Aside from that, on his most recent album GNX, most of the features were actually LA-based rappers, and I'll be honest, I hadn't really heard about any of these guys until I saw them on Kendrick's project, and that was the case for most people. And many fans believe Kendrick did this on purpose, that the way he stacked this album with underground artists was his direct response to the criticism we've been talking about. Also, really quickly, let's also not forget the pop-out show on Juneteenth. Kendrick brought out the entire city of Los Angeles. Underground names, street rappers, legends, everybody. That was basically a live demonstration that he does care about putting his city on, even if it doesn't look like the way Drake does it. Now, interestingly enough, one of the rappers Kendrick put on GNX actually ended up validating this whole criticism out of spite, and that was LA rapper Dody 6. A few months ago, Dody 6 hopped on Instagram Live and went on a heated rant about his situation. He revealed that after being on Kendrick's album, he was still broke, homeless, and admitted that he was on meth. In the middle of all that, he called Kendrick Lamar a bitch, and he said that the song Hey Now didn't change his life at all. In his own words, the only thing he got from it was clout, and he said F clout.
Nigga, I lost my house. Nigga, I'm homeless. Nigga, that song with Kendrick ain't changed. Nigga, the fuck is that change? Nigga, I'm still from 40s. I'm still over here. Nigga, you act like a nigga got $1 million for that shit. Nigga, the fuck nigga got some clout. Nigga, and clout. Nigga, on the day homies. Nigga.
To make it worse, Dody 6 went on to explain that song with Kendrick ain't changed shit. I'm still from the 40s, claiming he's still a gangbanger. I'm still over here. You act like I got $1 million for that. The only thing I got is some clout and F clout. In the middle of all this, he even texted Adam22 during that time, basically telling him to post about his story, admitting he was on meth, and called Kendrick a bitch. But just days later, he doubled back and apologized on his Instagram story. He wrote, I want to publicly apologize to Kendrick Lamar for calling cuz a bitch. He is far from that and ain't did nothing but bless me in my life. Isn't it really ironic how, the first time Kendrick loads up an album with a bunch of unknown artists, one of them turns around and blasts him for the very opportunity he gave him. And I don't know if this directly plays into why Kendrick doesn't go out of his way to collaborate with a bunch of names, especially underground ones, but it does show one of the downsides of doing that. When you give someone an opportunity and put them in a position, a lot of times, they end up feeling like they were supposed to get more out of it, even though they obviously aren't entitled to anything. And this reminds me of something Jay-Z said years ago, which is the issues people have with me a lot of times is about what I didn't do for them, not what I did to them.
When you hear people's gripe against me, it's always about what I didn't do for them. They don't say I did anything to them. They said I didn't do something for them.
The sad part is a lot of artists don't fully use the opportunities that they're given, and when things don't play out how they imagined, suddenly it's somebody else's fault. Even Drake has dealt with the same thing. But the difference for Drake is, for him, it's a trade-off. He puts people on because it directly ties into how he stays relevant. He feeds off of that energy and keeps himself attached to that, wave of that particular artist. And in return, he benefits by keeping their fan base on his side. So that's why I think that approach works for Drake. I've always thought that Kendrick's influence simply looks different, and it's not that he has less influence because he's not doing a bunch of collaborations or putting people on. For him, I think it's more about building from within rather than pulling things from the outside towards him. And this seems like the kind of approach that works for him because, he comes off as more naturally introverted and introspective rather than someone who loves being in the limelight. And I don't agree with discrediting his impact for this one thing because it's never been somewhere he puts his focus anyway. It's the same reason why I don't agree with people looking at Drake and saying that he's not of the culture because he doesn't do interviews with platforms inside of it. Look, man, nobody owes you anything, whether it's a feature or an interview. And plus, this criticism mainly has been pushed by the media platforms in hip-hop because a lot of them want to hear Drake answer the so-called hard questions so they can see him fumble and they can get a bunch of clicks off of it. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to sit down with people who want to see you fail. What incentive does Drake actually have to sit down with people who are open about the fact that they just don't want him to win? Let's not forget that the entertainment industry is a selfish game as it is. People aren't in it purely for altruistic reasons. It's a game of getting what you can and staying focused on the things that actually contribute to you. The best way to move for some artists is create their significance by prioritizing their message over constant visibility. Because one of the things that comes with a lot of collaborations is being seen. And I'm sure people know that Kendrick is like a light switch. When it's time, you'll see him. But, when he's not on tour, post a release, or doing press for his album rollouts, you won't hear about him again until that next cycle, which is intentional. And it's also the opposite of how Drake operates and moves. But neither approach is wrong because it's just about what works for each artist. Because because each artist is an individual and they don't have to follow some made up template that's being enforced by the so-called culture, because if they did, both these very successful artists wouldn't be where they are today. So trying to diminish Kendrick's influence because he's not moving like Drake when it comes to the collaboration aspect, I don't really agree with that. I think that's purposely ignoring his individuality for the sake of justifying unjust criticism towards him. But what do I know, right? If you made it this far, I appreciate you so much. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, okay? My name is BlackySpeakz. Nice to meet you. Any thoughts on Kendrick getting called out? Very curious to hear what you guys have to say. Y'all let me know in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.